I'm in double duty tonight. I'm going to have to try to take notes and facilitate the meeting. So you're going to have to bear with me. I may have to watch the recording to get notes back, but we'll see what I can do here. Oh, there's Susan McKee.
We'll go slow.
Okay, go really slow because I'm not very fast at this. Hi, Sue. Susan.
Go slow speed.
That would be amazing. All right. I was just saying that I am responsible for notes tonight, so on top of facilitating the meeting. So we're going to have to take this a little slow. All right. Good evening. It is 7:01 on April 5th. I would like to call the regular meeting of the Senior Services Aging in Place Task Force to order. Due to the virtual nature of the meeting, all voting and attendance we've done through roll call. Going through as everyone appears on my screen, please state aye and where you're broadcasting from. Starting with Commissioner Douglas.
Aye, and I'm here from Royal Oak.
Paul.
Aye, Paul here from Royal Oak.
Joan.
I'm here from Royal Oak.
Susan Anderson.
Hi, and I'm here from Royal Oak.
Okay. Sue Wells.
Hi, Royal Oak.
Okay, now we're going to go to Susan McKee. I feel like there's a lot of S's in this room.
Hi, Royal Oak.
Awesome. All right. So the first order of business is approval of the March 1st, 2021 minutes.
Madam Chair, I do have a correction.
Okay.
Well, just item 5A, it indicates that Sarah was nominated as chair and seconded, but there's no indication in the minutes that she was unanimously elected.
Okay. Sarah was unanimously elected. Okay. I will have that updated. I will add that correction to the minutes. Okay. Anything else on the minutes?
And with that change, I will move approval of the minutes.
Okay, so moved. Anyone want a second?
Second.
Any other, Joan second, Gizo, Pete's, Joan second, Shar first. Okay, any discussion on the motion of the approval of the minute with adding that Sarah was unanimously voted upon as the chair? Feels really weird to talk about yourself in the third person, just so you know. All right, we'll go ahead and call for a vote as everyone appears on my screen. Susan McKee, sorry.
Aye.
Sue Wells.
Aye.
Susan Anderson.
Hi.
Joan Johnson.
Aye.
Paul Webb.
Aye.
Commissioner Douglas.
Aye.
Unanimously passed. Okay. Looking over our agenda for April 5th, we have questions and comments. We have some surveys to look at, review of our insight ad, then review of some city survey results, talk about a timeline for year 2 and next steps, public comment, and adjournment. Does anyone have any additions? Or can we move to approve the agenda as stated?
I, Sue, move to approve the agenda.
Okay. Sue Wells approves agenda. Okay. Sue M seconds. All right, let's do roll call. I'll start with Commissioner Douglas.
Yes.
Okay. Paul.
Yes.
Joan.
Yes.
Susan Anderson.
Yes.
Sue Wells.
Yes.
Susan McKee.
Yes.
Okay, passed. I as well. I to all the aboves. I just forgot I'm supposed to vote. All right. Moving on to the first order of business. Questions and comments on task force work year 1 data. So I know last time we got a lot of data thrown at us. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look through that. We can just open up the discussion, or we can take this however you guys want. Okay, we'll go around the room. Did everybody look at the data? We'll start from the beginning. Did everyone get a chance to at least kind of open up and start to peruse the data? Okay.
I did. I think we maybe touched on this last month as well. I wonder what, I looked really kind of focused on the transportation portion, as that's my focus group or domain moving forward in the working group.
Okay.
And I wonder if some of the last year has affected people's opinion on affordable public transportation and, the go-go grandparent, which was the accessible or more easily user-friendly version of Uber. And are they still relevant data points a year after life has changed? And should we try even briefly to do you have any change of opinion on this topic in the next month before we get moving into year 2 to see if there's different thoughts on it? I don't know.
Okay. I don't disagree. I guess I don't know, and I'm open to like what it looks like. I kind of agree with you, Paul. I feel like as we look through all of the data, it could be completely relevant. It could be completely irrelevant. It's probably a mixture of both, right? Some things have probably completely shifted, and there's probably some things that we didn't even know about that are now things that we probably should consider, right? Like the world has changed regardless. And so what was important before could be even more important, could be less important. And then there's probably things that we didn't even know were going to be important. So I think we all kind of have that question at hand of how best to tackle that. I mean, I think there's probably a number of ways to do it. We could do, a survey. We could start our working groups off with like what their thoughts are. I don't necessarily know the right answer. I'm just throwing out the ideas that I've thought about. Because I kind of agree. But what are you going to say, Joan? Looks like you're ready to say something.
Whenever I have been in the business of gathering data, there is always a window where that data changes. And this particular window being the pandemic, the changes are much more evident. I mean, my responsibility is housing.
Right.
After I read the article that Shar supplied us, and it's not like I didn't know this, we're now going to be looking at how do we house people if they don't want to go to a nursing home. And there's plenty of evidence where community living in that kind of environment, if it's not handled well, you get a lot of problems. And we are not in the business of telling nursing homes how to handle themselves. That's not our scope. But it is to some degree our scope to look at how has the pandemic affected housing. Royal Oak is just booming. Because of that, people who were priced out of apartments are even more so today. Because, like it or not, Royal Oak is gentrifying. And so how is it that we handle that piece of business on an ongoing basis? Does that mean that we would not need to look at that had the pandemic not shown up? I don't think so. But how do we stop everything and go back and survey everyone? You can get in that business and be chasing your tail.
Mm-hmm. And
I'm not convinced that that's necessarily the right way to proceed. We're going to have experts on these committees. We're going to have residents on these various work groups, and they're going to have knowledge that we don't have. And to say that we should take everything that we've done so far and say, gosh, I think we need to take a pause and go back and ask these folks again, I think that's probably the wrong way to go, because things will change no matter what we do. had the pandemic not shown up, things would still change. Time marches on regardless of where we are.
Yep.
And so I think we would be better served by taking what we have and working with the folks who are experts in their field and residents who are kind of connected to the residents of this city and say, all right, here's what we initially found. How much of that is still true? How much of it is true in a larger way? You know, so
Mhm.
long story short, there's no reason to go back.
Okay. I look at, like, I think I was with information and communication, and that's probably been consistently an issue. It was probably amplified during the pandemic for sure, right? Like, not knowing who to access for what. I mean, I can say even just around vaccines alone, it's been crazy. And I'm not saying that's even in Royal Oak, that's just countrywide. So like, communication is always going to be a challenge for any community. And I think that this probably this continued to spotlight that there is always communication challenges in any community, right? Anytime you put more than one person in a room, there's probably an opportunity for communication challenges. So, if you're not talking just to yourself, you probably have an opportunity to misinterpret information, all the things that go into that. So I don't disagree. I guess I appreciate both sides of this. And I guess I want to make sure that I guess I'd like to hear from the rest of the group of how they feel about this and kind of some ideas or thoughts about how we want to proceed. And Susan McKee, I see your hand is up, so go ahead.
And I think we talked about this a little bit the last time we got together, and I'm wondering if, I appreciate Joan's comment about chasing our tail, trying to make sure the data is current. But I wonder if the work groups themselves might look at things a little bit differently based on our experience over the last year. So they aren't necessarily going to take ideas that were put forth and stick solely to those. There might be new information that those domain working group participants have that might influence the plan that they develop. So I'm wondering if the changes we've all experienced over this past year will be captured through that process.
Yeah, those are good points. And I think the thing is when I think about when we start with these working groups, we're going to present the data. They probably will interpret it differently than we did. So I think there's probably a lot of value in presenting them the raw data and helping them draw their own conclusions on what that is based on the lens that they're looking through it. So maybe it's not that we present we can say these are the themes that we identified and here's some general ideas, but like, I think it might, where we take the step back is presenting them like the true raw comments for that particular area and letting them sift through those and think about it and really take the time to digest it the way we have. Like, we've been so close to it. No, we were so close to it, but like taking a moment to really read through those and through their own particular lens, because then I don't feel like we're influencing one way or the other, and then seeing where they think if there are gaps or if there's things that haven't been identified. And maybe that's how you start the conversation a little bit. But, certainly that's an idea and a thought. Yeah, Shar, what have you got?
Yeah, and you just said it, Sarah, but I'll dwell on it a little bit more. And that is that even before our work groups, our work groups will look at data, but they're also going to hear from city staff as to what existing programs we have, or experts in the field who know what programs and services are available externally. So package that along with our working groups processing of the data that we've collected. I think they'll even have a stronger foundation to move forward with both, knowledge and common sense and creativity.
Susan Anderson or Sue Wells, do you have anything, thoughts? I just don't want to miss anybody here.
I think one thing, I think it's important that you review the data with the work groups, and like any data, you're so close to it that you look at it through a different filter if you haven't been reviewing it on an ongoing basis. I think you, the work groups may get different information from it than what the task force gets. But I think with COVID and what we've been going through, it's really life-changing. It's a major impact. And I think it would be maybe helpful as one of the first initiatives with these work groups is to discuss, okay, transportation, how has COVID affected, transportation? I'm thinking of how Smart now has the flex cars. I'm thinking how people don't want to ride on buses. I think because of COVID, there's been so many different things that affect transportation, that affect nursing homes, that affect everything. And I think if we lose sight of that, it's not a working document.
And I think the other side of that is I think as we go through this, I envision that we're going to need to have a part of our action plan report that addresses some of these changes that have happened from COVID, right? Like we were in the middle of this process, and I think it would feel like an incomplete report if we didn't at least acknowledge that a pandemic happened in the middle of this whole thing. And it's not good, bad, and different, but we're going to need to include that as part of our action plan report to the AARP, just to make sure that we've acknowledged the process, that the impact it had on our process. Susan Anderson, do you have anything? If not, no big deal. I just want to give you an opportunity.
No, it's pretty much everybody else has touched on it. I think we do need to weigh some thought on the pandemic and how it possibly could have affected things. I mean, because these surveys were done a while ago. So even though, some things have stayed the same, there's quite a few things that are drastically different. So we need to look at how it could possibly affect things.
So what I have heard and ways to address it, I heard that we're going to continue to move forward. And Paul, I'd love to hear from you again, but just how comfortable are you that, like, when we have these kickoff meetings, we talk about the raw data, as well as I really kick off the initial discussion around impacts on COVID on some of the different, I think they're called pillars, or what are they called, Sue?
Domains.
Domain, thank you.
Thanks.
I'm like, pillars, they're things that hold up houses, I don't know, 2x4s. But really having a frank discussion, and maybe it's the whole group, maybe it's within our domain work groups, it doesn't, we can figure all that out, but really at least setting the tone that we've acknowledged the impact and capture that at least to acknowledge in our overall report.
And it's even possible that the groups could identify that they need to get, like, one of their action steps might be to get more data around the impact of it, right? So potentially that could be something that if one domain felt particularly impacted, that they might choose to do for, if they felt that would be meaningful.
I think for me, are we as a task force saying the working group has the city employee, the subject matter expert, and the residents? Is that group going to be the ones, obviously they were also impacted by COVID. Are they going to be the ones that say, here's the data from before COVID, here are the things that we as a group have experienced in that, and we're going to use our knowledge base and experience to adjust if we need to adjust a certain domain, rather than reaching out to the citizens?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I think as a task force, if there was going to be significant adjustments in the domain, that they would need to come back to this group for discussion. I guess if we felt like they couldn't make decisions or they couldn't move forward in their domain based on the data that they had to be intentional and impactful, then I would expect it to come back to this group as a report out of how we need to move forward. Because maybe it's only one domain that feels that way and we can continue the paths of the other ones or not. And I think address that in the individual particular domain group itself. I mean, I think the thing is we only have data. We don't, in a handful of, if you start to comb through that data, there are suggestions of how to improve it, but you stripped out all of the suggestions. We have data of what the pain points are for the city. My guess is some of those pain points either have already been addressed because, like they've increased public or transportation options to be more flexible and less allow for social distancing and things like that. But there were pain points that we need to come up with action plans on, or they've become even more prevalent and they're just going to become a bigger thing that we need to tackle. It seems like that's how, I guess I'm trying to think through like what I've seen on the data. Sounds like, Polly, you've got some ideas around transportation that you think might be really significantly different from the data than you had before.
I mean, just looking at it through there, it was a lot of better senior bus, more, more parking, that kind of stuff. But with things changing, smart bus going rather from their door-to-door bus shuttle to the car service, that changes the options. It may make transportation easier to tackle because things have already changed and improved in some way. I don't want to move forward and say, well, the work groups are the ones who are going to adjust for COVID. And if you don't like it, I guess you should have been on the work group. That's all. But if we as a group decide city employees, subject matter experts, and the 50% residents on each domain working group, if they're the ones who are going to kind of talk it out, and if we need to come back to the task force and take a step back if something comes up, then that's all right with me.
Yeah, I think, go ahead, Joe.
We gathered data. We did not gather solutions.
Right.
And I suspect that had the pandemic not shown up, the folks who are going to be on these work groups would be looking at the issues that show up in the data. And they would be making suggestions as to what to do with those items, and come up with their solutions about how they want to manage them. What has changed specifically about the data? I mean, I looked at housing and the issues that were there are still there. The solutions may be different now because of what occurred in the pandemic, but we still have issues of getting snow removed from in front of people's houses. That hasn't gone away. And therefore, we may be better informed by the pandemic in terms of how these work groups are going to solve or suggest solutions to the issues that were brought about in the data, because we all basically got beat up. And many of the sources that we relied on went away. Some of them will come back. I suspect a lot of them won't. Some are going to turn into strange hybrids of what we used to do. I mean, I went to a music retreat last week that was held in Virginia by Zoom. It was perfect, absolutely perfect, except I didn't get to handshake and hug everybody that I know that went there. So will this change? Will this change back? The man who's running these retreats is saying, no, he's going to keep a Zoom component from now on. There are bonuses for that. We had somebody from Scotland and that showed up, and somebody from England. How cool is that? So what I'm suggesting is that the issues that people brought to us may have been exacerbated by the pandemic, but they haven't gone anywhere.
Yeah, I think where I'd like to say is, I think, Paul, as you dig into it, I don't think that the working group can just decide to shift something. I think, like, if there was a significant thing that this working group, whichever one it is, felt was very different than the data, then I think that we need to pause for a minute, come back to this group and discuss it. My guess is that a lot of them will not shift significantly, but if we really feel like, if, for instance, transportation just feels like it's a huge shift, like, let's discuss it as a group and figure out how to proceed at that time. And we can certainly reach out and see if other communities have dealt with that or how they've dealt with it through this process. But I think, you know, let's handle that let's just not assume that, let's kind of treat that as the exception and not the rule, but know that that's a potential. And if you as the leader feel that this is not kind of addressing what you like, where you kind of, if it's starting to fall outside of what you think is the scope or the pain points or something like that, we're going to use your gut and sense and there's that litmus test to come back to this group to discuss it. Does that work for everybody? Because I think we're all going to have to navigate the waters a little bit differently. And so, you know, there's going to be a little, so trying to take it as a, and if we all notices that's happening, then we'll pause and figure it out, I guess. I don't know what everyone's thoughts are about that.
That makes sense, says Sue.
Thank you, Sue. Hi, Shar. Go ahead, Shar.
The work groups are not a closed loop.
Right.
I mean, in the process, there will be intervals where we take a set of results, reach a certain point in our deliberations or plans, and then present them back out to the public. So we will have that engagement, those voices coming back to us to say either, yeah, COVID and all, we still think you're on the right track, or let's take another look at that. So this is absolutely going to be an open process with a lot of steps along the way for verification or for changes if changes are needed.
But I
I'm
think
good
it's,
with that.
yeah, and I just think it's good to be on a radar and let's have open, honest dialogue about it, because I think if anyone's feeling that apprehension, I think this is the place for us to discuss those things as a board of how we want to navigate them. So I appreciate the conversation around that.
I'm still not clear if the data from the focus group, so the scribe notes per se, if we have a good handle on that data, right? Because it was so kind of qualitative. And I know that Alexis spent some time and pulled out key themes, but are we feeling that that's adequate, or does that need to be reviewed in a more kind of deliberate way? Because it's easy to look at all of that data and for our own biases to either be confirmed, you know, like I don't want that to be the case either, that the domain chair or lead has to interpret that data in any way, you know? Does that sort of make sense?
So when I looked through the data, I looked at Alexis's thing and her tally. I think, did everybody get the spreadsheet with the tallies on it? Everybody's got that? I really started to go through and read the individual things. And I know she highlighted stuff, but I tried to, I almost removed that. And I just started to read, and I focused primarily on communication, but I just started to read the data. I haven't gotten into it too deep, and I'm going to continue to search through it, but I really went to the verbatims that were captured in that Word document as my source, because I didn't want to be influenced by whatever Alexis kind of tallied up for us based on, I'm guessing, keywords essentially is what she did, right? She thought if they said they needed technology training, it got a tick. But if they said they needed Excel training, I don't know if that got extrapolated up into technology, things like that. So I'm trying to kind of ignore her consolidation right now, so I can just deal with the raw data. and take that so that I can come to my own conclusions through my own lens. That's how I've been attacking it. I know, sounds like Paul went through his. Paul, kind of, what did you focus on when you looked at yours?
I mean, I just briefly looked into summing up the key themes and the stuff from the online and paper surveys. And just, tried to look into my focus group domain, transportation, and kind of see what that was looking like. So,
Okay. And poor Sue Wells and Susan Anderson don't have domains. They probably didn't look at it other than go, oh my God, there's so much data here. I don't know what to do. I just want to cry because I've been sent 75 attachments and stuff that I don't know what it really is trying to tell me. So I appreciate that you guys are just like, okay, I'm going to keep coming to meetings. Well, we'll get you some domains. Yes, you guys will get there. I promise. It is a lot of data. I think it, and I do think that I don't, not about trust. It's just about, I want to understand the data through my own perspective, I guess, to understand what I think the themes are, because they may not be what Alexis thought the themes were. So, and I did facilitate some of them. So I probably, maybe I have a little bit different lens, which is a good, I don't know. Shara, did you look at the data? I know you've been much more intimately involved in it.
Well, so I'm not sure that I've got, you said Alexis did a spreadsheet with it.
Yeah, you want me to, I can share it with you guys. I can just share the screen.
I mean, because I've looked at the documents, and Sue McKee is right. I mean, they are all things to all people. You've got one person who says, I can get around very easily, and another person who says I can't get around at all. So it's qualitative to perhaps to the point of, I'm not going to say it's not usable, because taken as a whole, it does give you the color and flavor of the focus group sessions. And that coupled with the quantitative data, I think will be useful to our work group participants.
So Shar, this is the data that I don't know if so it's by group here. So like communication and information is the one I was looking at, right? So essentially she went through the verbatims and said 12 people said technology, that we need paper communication, we need a senior coordinator. So these were the aspirations that were noted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Send it to me. It's hard for me to read on the screen. So I somehow overlooked was this sent, did you send this recently or was that earlier on?
I think Sue sent it a while ago, but I'll send it to you guys all. I'll send it to the whole group. No problem. But this is and so that she has done that for all of them. So I'll be happy.
I think that's super useful. I mean, I trust her parsing of the data to extract the salient points, just glancing at what you showed us.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all data. At the end of the day, we have a lot of data at our fingertips. So I do think, go ahead.
Sorry, Sarah, I was going to say, and that's just from the aspiration sheet. So then she also took the scribe notes and consolidated those based on domains. So that's like pages and pages and pages of the actual written notes. So that information really isn't necessarily captured in that spreadsheet. And that is some of the information that I'm not sure that we have as clear of a handle on, because it's just like reams of notes from each of those meetings.
It's the reams of notes that I had looked at.
Okay, so the reams of notes are what we actually need to take and identify pain points from. So that's what we need to do with those after we identify our domain groups. We need to comb through that to really start to have the conversation for our working groups. These aspirations are a way of what we went through is potential solutions to need to be a consideration in the solutions that we identify, because these are what the groups or the focus groups I'd identified that they thought would be the solutions and the challenges. Is that way I'm reading the data? So, okay.
And would we each do that for our domain?
Yeah, I think you would. I mean, I think each
How about we
person would need, yeah, so we gotta get some domains signed out here, so probably
Right.
should, so I think, not trying to remember this, Paul's transportation, so let's see. Why don't we do that? Why don't we pause here in the conversation and start to think about what domains we're gonna tackle, so then people can start to focus on the data that they need to review. Does that help?
That would be helpful.
Okay, Paul is our transportation. I think Joan was housing, from what I heard earlier, not that I remembered that at all, but she reminded me earlier.
Correct.
Shar, I have no idea where you were.
Yeah, I'm sitting here, I'm trying to track down the spreadsheet that this was in. I mean, I did have obviously I have an assignment. I just don't remember what it was.
Was it public space? No, it wasn't public spaces, was it?
Could be.
Okay, public spaces.
I think it was.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sue was just
I was the
Guru.
floater.
You were the
Yeah.
guru. Sarah was communication and information. So what does that leave us? I don't even know what these are anymore. What's it leave us, Susan McKee?
So it leaves us with the other groups. And last time when we talked about it, we were deciding whether, because we had consolidated, right?
3.
So there were the one that was going to be all about participation, inclusion, respect.
Is that, and that civic duty, is that or something in there, or is it employment?
And then there was health and I'm just pulling them up here.
Okay, health, respect, inclusion, and civic stuff. Health, and then there is parks part of public spaces, Shar?
Yes. So it's outdoor spaces and buildings
Okay,
is what Charlene.
Okay.
Housing, transportation, communication.
outdoor
And then-
spaces in buildings, okay.
Yeah, health services and community support. So that was what Bernadette had originally been tasked.
Okay,
And then we had initially decided to join social participation, respect and social inclusion, and civic participation and employment. We had consolidated those. In last meeting, we were questioning whether
okay.
we still wanted to consolidate those or make some changes.
I don't know. What are our thoughts about keeping them all together? I'll start there. That's a lot of stuff. Respect, inclusion, employment, civic,
Participation.
and social participation.
Yeah.
Wow.
And part of that, our reasoning at the time was because we were getting very similar responses from people for each of those domains.
From what I remember, let's also note this was before all the social unrest last year. So like we did not have a huge challenge in I mean, there were some opportunities, don't get me wrong, but there was not a huge around respect. It felt like I think a lot around people felt very respected here, I would say. Like that one wasn't one that bubbled up for me. Okay. What do you guys think? Do you think we should leave all of that as one? Or do you think, given the last year, we need to pull out inclusion and?
It's a lot in
It is a
one,
lot.
you know, inclusion could be one by itself. Respect.
Has the city gotten a lot of feedback or anything around these things, Shar? I mean, in commission meetings, any bubbling up around inclusion or anything like that?
Well, so the city, you will know, has a human rights ordinance that was passed in
Okay.
2013. And now the city commission, based on the act stuff of last summer, has instructed the staff to develop a human rights commission. That is somebody to monitor our progress on our status and provide a platform for resolution and improvement as it might be necessary. The challenge to that is because the Human Rights Ordinance is an ordinance, the Human Rights Commission also has to be developed as an ordinance or an amendment to the existing ordinance.
Oh,
So
okay.
it wasn't as simple as just waving a magic wand and creating by executive fiat a Human Rights Commission.
Okay.
So I will say that there are people who are interested in that. So
Sure.
we may very well find that people who have an interest in that gravitate towards
Towards this.
this domain, this combination of domains.
Okay.
And as I think someone else here said, there were a lot of similar comments. I mean, we'd ask when we were doing all 8 domains, we'd get to the social participation domain and people would answer those questions. And then we'd get to the civic engagement and they'd go, well, didn't I just answer that? So I continue to feel comfortable with rolling those 3 domains in together.
Oh, it's just 3, just a lot of words.
Right.
It's just big words for 3 domains. I got it.
Right, we'd come up
Sorry.
with a suggested name so that it was less cumbersome.
Okay.
Yeah, that we had not yet voted on. So that would have to be, if we decide that we still want to keep them together.
I think this is another one. I think we might have to get into it and feel it out. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like this one could be, I could see us starting down the path, and if something became a really large thing that we needed to tackle, then maybe this isn't where we have to say, okay, guys, like maybe we need to separate this particular thing out. But I don't think, if we think about the data and the responses, and that's all we can really go on right now, they felt good about being together. So
Right.
I appreciate, so it seems like a lot. Yes, we need to be more articulate and eloquent about how we word all of that together. And I think we can come up with some different ideas so it doesn't feel so huge. Because when you put like 18 words in one thing, it seems to feel like it's an overwhelming amount of things, but I think you'll find very common themes there. So I think that's, and I guess Sue Wells is just gonna have to trust us on this. So I promise that like it was very, very
I
similar.
trust you. I trust you. I'm a
All right.
newbie, remember?
I know, but I know, and I appreciate that it sounds very daunting when you like say it all out, because I can't even remember all of it. So we'll come up with a better term for that. But I think right now we've already put out in the insight, and we've already kind of advertised them as one domain. So I guess we should probably, well, I guess we should stay on that path, since we don't want to, be false advertising now.
It's in ink. You can't change it now.
That's right. We can't change it. It's in the insight. It's official. All right. So, is anybody super passionate about any of these topics that they really want to like say, I can't live without leading this group? Yes, Char.
I will say I am not passionate about any of them. I've been through all of this enough that I could do any of these domains.
Okay.
And we have newcomers here. We have Sue Wells and Sue Anderson. Maybe we need, and they may have a particular passion or knowledge about one of these domains. And I would say, let them have first pick.
Okay. So we'll just
Can
start
I-
with the Sues, and then we can all go
Can I
get the rest. Yes.
Just throw out the name that we had
Okay.
proposed
Yes.
was community engagement and inclusion.
Okay. And that was all the other words into one.
That was what we were trying to
Okay.
cover.
We need to vote on that, is what you're telling me, or come up with a different name.
If that's,
Okay.
yeah.
Perfect. All right.
I would be more than happy to take public spaces and parks. I know that will come as a surprise, but
It will.
I kind of thought that would be a great fit for you, Sue Wells.
Okay, so Sue Wells is gonna take public spaces and parks. Susan Anderson, your second choice here,
Oh, boy.
unless you really want to fight Sue Wells over public spaces and
No,
parks.
no.
There, there's the healthcare one too, right?
Yeah, there's a healthcare and community support.
Right.
What's the healthcare? What's the
Like,
healthcare?
it's not solving like whether you have insurance or not.
Right.
This one was fairly, I think from what I remember, it was a lot around access to healthcare, which is pretty good around here, to be honest.
Right.
Community support was more, there was a lot of opportunity there around like intergenerational activities between the library and things like that. So making sure that like they feel that they've got access to things that they want to do in the community, if I remember correctly. Sue's way more into this than I was, so she can explain them better.
Yeah, it was all kind of the supports and services and
Okay.
potential gaps.
Okay. I kind of like that community support.
Okay, so health and community support for Susan Anderson.
Yeah.
All right, Joan, you want to keep your housing?
I'll keep housing.
Okay, Joan's going to keep housing. Paul, I bet you want to keep transportation since you've already looked at it.
Sure.
Okay. After you, Commissioner Douglas, what would you
Well,
like?
I mean, communication, I mean, that is my sweet spot. And I would make a case for, if we haven't done this already, for Sarah not having a domain,
Right.
given the responsibilities of her chairpersonship.
Okay.
Knowing that she too has a career in communication and will always be there with her expertise.
Maybe I'll participate.
Maybe she could be a subject area expert.
Yeah.
She could not.
Oh,
She absolutely could not.
Come on, Sarah. So then that leaves the community engagement and inclusion for me, which is fine.
I feel like we have
It's in
now.
I mean, social work is my profession, right? So it's in my wheelhouse.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to recap to make sure we're all on board, and then we will talk about the renaming. Okay.
Mhm.
Sue Wells, public spaces and parks.
correct.
Susan Anderson, health and community support.
Mhm.
Joan's going to stick it out in the housing. Paul's going to make sure that we get to all the places. Shar is going to make sure we know all about the communication and information, all the things. And Sue is going to make sure that we have a community of inclusion and support or something, engagement. And Sarah's just going to keep it all together. Okay.
Somebody has to.
Somebody's got to, right. All right. All right. So with that, does that help narrow things down? So as I think there's some takeaways from here that now you guys can kind of start to focus your areas a little bit more instead of just being overwhelmed by all of the information. So apologize, we probably should have done that last time. So, okay, now that we have that, there is an opportunity for Sue Wells to rename her area. And I'm not gonna lie, Sue McKee is going to have to read them all off, what it includes, and then we can talk about what we had proposed and we can vote on a name. And so we can have less words going forward. So Sue, can you walk us through what it actually, what the real words are from the AARP?
Yeah, and that was actually my domain, not
Okay.
Sue. Yeah, the other Sue. So
Okay.
what it originally included was social participation, respect and social inclusion, civic participation, and employment. And we had tossed around a number of ideas and came up with our original suggestion, which was community engagement and inclusion, because we felt that kind of covered all of the, we didn't want to lose any of those pieces, and we felt that that kind of covered all of them.
So we had proposed community engagement and inclusion. Does anybody have any thoughts, any additional words like any other ideas about what we can rename this? Do we want to table this to next month and revisit our wording? No. How do we-
I'm fine with it. I think it covers, I think that's just my 2 cents. I think
Okay.
it covers, you know, the ideas around potentially volunteering and other like city involvement.
We can put all the rest in
participation.
parentheses.
I think it all falls under that umbrella just fine.
Okay.
That's my 2 cents.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember this was a healthy debate in the last when this meeting happened. So I feel like Paul and Joan and Shar have had time to noodle on this. So I'm going to stick to the other Susan and Sue and see if they have any ideas or thoughts. Then we can come back to the whole group. And
I think if the people with the expertise that's been on the committee, I defer to them.
okay. I promise you it was healthy debating. We spent a lot of time on words in one meeting.
Yeah. No, just in
Susan-
my head, I was coming up with pretty much the same kind of,
Okay.
so I think it's fine.
Perfect. Okay. So, does somebody want to make a motion? I don't know if I can as the chair, so I don't ever do it.
Okay.
I'm told no, I am not allowed to make motions, so I will just sit
Okay.
here quietly.
I'll make a motion that the 3 domains previously known as social participation, respect and social inclusion, civic participation and employment be consolidated into 1 domain to be named community engagement and inclusion. Did you get all that, Sarah?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch this. Okay. Anybody want a second? Shar, are you seconding? Paul seconding? Somebody?
Paul can second. Sarah, just FYI, the chair cannot make motions, but the chair can second them if necessary.
Oh, well, good. I'm just really honing in on this role. Gonna get there. All right. I'm gonna say
I'll
Paul
second the motion.
All right, thank you, Paul. Keep me off the hot seat. All right, we'll do roll call. I'm going to start with Sue Wells,
Yes,
Susan Anderson,
Okay,
Joan,
Yes,
Paul,
Yes.
Shar,
Yes,
and Sue McKee.
Yes.
We have a lot of Sue, so I have to call them by first and last name. All right, passed unanimously. So I don't know if that's what went on the flyer, but that's where we are. Look at all this business we're taking care of, you guys. We are just making progress. I don't know if we've done anything with the online survey, or the paper survey, or the key themes. I think, are we feeling good about questions and comments around the task force work 1? I think we're ready to move on. I think for next time, maybe we come back. We'll have this as a continuation next meeting, but with each person having a little bit more time to dive in, with Susan Anderson and Sue Wells having a chance to actually dig into their domains and make sure they have any questions or comments. So we'll keep this as a topic for next time, just to make sure that we feel like we're ready to move forward.
So Sarah, I
Yeah.
don't believe that myself or the other Sues, they would not have the scribe note data.
Okay, I can get that to them.
because Alexis sent that out just to the domain leads because
Okay.
it was so big. So I'm not sure where that's floating around. I think that Carol should be able to access that out of Alexis's.
Okay.
stuff.
We'll take that as an action item to work with Carol or somebody in the city, or if I have access to it or whatever, we'll find it and get it to you. How's that? That is my next responsibility. All right.
Sarah,
Review.
that brings
Yeah.
up quite, do we have the raw data for these areas? For
We
example,
should.
do we have all the scribe notes somewhere?
I think I do. I will take that all, and I now know who needs what, so I will try to get you what you need. And if you think you're missing something, let me know. So I'll kind of coordinate that effort of getting you the data. How's that?
That sounds, I don't have in my hand the paper copies of it. I have the summaries that Alexis put together,
Okay.
but I don't
I
have the original paper copies. Is it really you know?
No,
Is-
I don't have the paper copies. I can
No.
show you what I do have.
She typed it all up. So,
Yeah.
so that you don't need to have all of the paper copies. So she typed all of the notes, and
Yeah.
then put like all of the communication notes from each focus group in one document, sort of thing.
So what
Okay.
I have this. So I have this for housing, we'll say.
All
So
right.
this is like, I can get you this raw data. Okay.
Yeah, you can do that. I may have it somewhere.
Okay. I'll just
I-
resend it to
you know-
everybody individually. How's that? Just
Brenda,
that way we
if
can
you-
find it at the top of our inboxes.
That'd be great.
Okay. Yep. I can make sure that I have that for everybody and get it to them. I'll work on that tomorrow. Okay. Perfect. Let's talk about that insight ad. It was so beautiful, but I don't think it reflects our new name.
Yeah, no, it doesn't, but I can show it to people. I did send it out, but I've got
Yeah.
screen sharing privileges, so I can
Let's,
put it up here. And where is it? It is this. And then I'm going to share. So Judy Davids designed this for us. And I moved forward on this knowing that I wanted to get this into the Insight magazine, and that has such an early deadline. It had an April 1 deadline. So you all had a chance to offer input on this, and I think it reflects the input that you sent us. Judy, so we've got a phone number here that's going to be a recording, and we will need to write a script for that recording. And then we will want to have, it has the ability, I think it's like a Google phone number. It has the ability to forward a notification of all the calls to one person. So, and Carol Schwanger had volunteered to do that, but she's in the middle of so many things already that it seems practical to me for one of us on the committee to get those notifications and follow up with them or divvy it up as we might see fit.
yeah. Yeah, that would be amazing. I can be the recipient of them if you need me to be. And then I can listen to them and then work with the domain leaders. How's that? Since I'm not leading a domain, I'm corralling the whole thing here. How about I can take the point on the calls and get them to the domain leaders?
I think that's good.
Sarah, you rock. Thank you.
So, all right. So I'm going to get the messages from this thing somehow, and then I will follow up. I will listen to them and I will follow up with domain leaders and let them.
Or just
So-
enter their data into the
Yeah.
spreadsheet.
I'll listen to what it is, and if they need following up, if not, I will at least acknowledge that I received their call. How's that?
Right. And the domain, the URL at the bottom goes right to the page where that is the Google document sign up form.
Okay.
So try that yourselves and you will see that it goes to that form. It explains a little bit about the age-friendly process, and it says, give us your contact info and tell us which of these domains or areas you want to participate in.
Okay.
And bonus round, Royal Oak Today, the quarterly magazine, the glossy magazine that you get, had some extra space. So they too are running our half-page ad in the magazine. So both of those publications go out to every household in Royal Oak.
Awesome. That was in the, what was it called?
Royal Oak Today.
Today.
Oh, Today and the Insight.
Yeah.
I might be calling for backup on these phone calls, you guys. All right.
So we had a list of people who had already voiced interest.
Yes.
So do we have a plan to reconnect with those people and find out if they're still interested a year later?
I think we do. I think what I would probably say is that we need to know kind of a plan ourselves before we reach out to them. I'd like to know, like, if you're still interested, then kind of walk through a little bit of a timeline with them maybe. Because I think if I called somebody today and said, are you interested? Like, we're just figuring it out ourselves. So like, I guess I definitely think we do need to reach out to them before we engage them, just not making an assumption that they're still involved. But once we kind of have this a little more vetted out of like the timing of like, okay, we're going to look to start these in July, you know, that gives us whatever that, I'm just using that as an example. I'm not saying that's the right time, but then that gives us something a little more concrete. And like, maybe we also, as a task force, kind of outline some of the expectations around it. So we can also communicate expectations around this so that they're fully aware of the commitment and what we're going to be getting into, I guess. Because I remember specifically you and I being in a meeting, not realizing it was really like, oh, I'm really signing up for the next, like, you know, 4 years. So I think it's important that we are articulating our expectations, and maybe we have different expectations of the work group, and then we narrow that down for the years 3 through 5 for implementation. And so it doesn't have to involve them all. I think we can design that, but I want to be able to communicate that, I think, before we reach out. I don't know. Does anybody else have any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree, Sarah. I just don't want those names to be lost. I don't want people to feel that, you know, we've just kind of moved on and are pulling together.
Yeah, and if we get any of them that reach out to us, I think I would just explain that we've just picked up in the last couple of months, and like, we are absolutely figuring out and committed to the process, and we will be reaching out in the next couple of months to engage with them. Going back to the voicemail, do we need to write the script, Shar? Like, is that something you and I need to do?
I'll write that.
Okay,
I'll do
perfect.
that.
I just trying to keep up here. Script, Shar, right?
I'll do it.
Okay. Any other thoughts on the insight? I think it looks great, personally.
For the Google Doc link, do we need to update our newly named consolidated domain? It's currently
Absolutely,
the really
Paul.
wordy one.
We were getting paid by the word last time. Now we're just volunteering. So we've decided that we don't need as many words. So if you can reflect that in our comments, that would be great, Paul.
All right, I just updated it.
Thank you, Shar.
Oh, there.
We're no longer getting paid by the word. So, you know, now we're just our volunteer pay. All right. Moving on to the city survey results, information barrier and preferred source of information. So if I remember this correctly, and I have 2 people here that I know remember it correctly, we had an opportunity last fall or I think it was last year, right?
Yes.
Last year they were sending out a citywide survey, and we were offered an opportunity to put in a couple of questions that were kind of specific around this for this task force. So we used that opportunity to gather some data around communication preferences, if I remember correctly. And so we just recently got the survey results back, and now we have a little bit better insight into the communication preferences of the city. I don't think it was age specific, was it?
Yes, Sarah, I can
Okay.
share my screen with this as well.
Okay, perfect.
Right. Okay.
Did I remember that semi-correctly?
Yep, you are correct. Where's my screen?
City results.
Is this what I want? I can't see my screen well enough to know what I'm clicking. Is this it? No, that's not it. This is it.
And we're all gonna have to have like a million amendments to the meeting next time because I tried to take notes, so.
So as Sarah said, the city every 2 years does a citywide survey to assess what people think about the city of Royal Oak. And the company that does it asks the same questions of cities across the United States. So they compare us to comparable cities, both nationally in the Midwest and in the state of Michigan. And they just presented the results to this here a couple of meetings ago. This is hang on. this.
And of course, we were the best. I
All
mean,
right.
come
Oh,
on.
shoot. All right, so here's their methodology. This is a statistic. All right, now we got it. This is a statistically valid survey. The questionnaire is mailed out to 1,500 residents chosen at random. We had responses from 389 residents, and I know there are people who don't know survey research who would say, how can 389 people be a representative sample for a city of 60,000? And yet that is indeed the case. You wind up with results that have a margin of error of plus or minus 5%. So we are confident that the views that this study revealed do reflect the views of the people of Royal Oak. As Sarah said, we had an opportunity to ask a couple questions, one of which was, what are your preferred sources of information? And here you see in orange, the responses of all people in Royal Oak, and then in green, the responses of people age 65 and over. I just this past week was a presenter at a Southeast Michigan Council of Governments seminar on survey research. And the results that you see here as to what preferences how people prefer to get information, almost 100% match those that you see in other cities across Michigan. Yes, the Insight magazine and newspapers and mailings are among the highest rated sources of information, but email is as well. And again, that is common throughout all cities. And of course, those, especially mailing and Insight magazine, are have long timelines or can be costly. And newspapers, unless you're buying an, if you buy an ad, then that's costly as well. But here was this was the really revealing question, and that is, here we've seen preferred sources of information, but then we asked, what are the barriers to you getting information about what's going on in the city? And the third item there is that their barrier is that they don't have access to a smartphone or the internet. And if you look, fewer than 5% of all Royal Oak respondents list that as a barrier, and only about 10% of seniors list that as a barrier. So while they may prefer mailings and hard copies, the fact is that lack of access to some sort of digital information is not an issue.
I think it's more the comfortability with tech.
Right.
That's the barrier than that it is that they have access to it. I mean, I would say that.
And then I'm amused by the answer to the fourth question, which was, people said, I'm not sure where to get information. The senior population had a lower score, that is more likely to know where to get more information than the population as a whole.
I wonder if that comes down to time, and somebody who maybe is in 65 or older has more time to search for it.
Or they're smarter.
Yes, for sure, they're smarter.
I'm going with smarter.
They're absolutely 100% smarter, and they use way better tech results to get there. But just in case, I'm like, they might also have more time and patience than if I'm in the middle of trying to take an email and do meetings and I search for something and I can't find it and I move on. I'm just something to consider when we talk about this. I think it's interesting.
Yeah. So I will say this also. I'm going to stop sharing this, and then I'm going to start sharing this. Where is it? I think this is it. So this is the city's website. This is the city manager's page. And if you or anybody want to look at all of the results of the Cobalt study, that is the community-wide study, you've got a link here to the summary report, and then you have a link to an Excel spreadsheet that has all of the data broken out by demographic cohorts for all of the questions, if you really want to geek out on this stuff.
Always like a good geek out.
Yep. So anyway, so that's my stuff.
Awesome. What do you guys think about? I think that's interesting because I think it's when I think about the data, because I only spend time really looking at the comms and information, very much in line with how they think they want it, the information, like they really like mailings and all that stuff. They didn't talk as much about the barriers, but I do think the comfort with tech came up quite a bit, if I remember correctly. So I think it's very in line with what we saw. So that's good to know that this was data that, at least for one of our domains, probably helps us feel more confident with the information that we gathered in the task force. But just specifically that domain. And I think where we also see is that as you guys start to look through your other domains of things, you will find a lot of times that it's not necessarily healthcare that they have an issue with. It's where do I find information about what services are available or what healthcare options like. So I think what I remember a lot was this was a larger one and it kind of spanned across multiple. And that's why we had decided that whatever format we take is that we need those constant touch points with each other, the sharing of minutes from our work groups, those types of things, so we can see what's happening in those, because as we start to develop our own working group solutions, they may have crossover or touch other areas. So that was really an important piece of information. And you start to see that when you start to think about communication and information particularly. But I do find it interesting. They love that insight.
Yeah.
Good thing we got our mailer in there. Good thing we got an ad in there. And 4 pages or whatever they got dedicated. 4 pages, right? They got 4 seniors got 4
Cover.
pages. What?
Cover.
The cover, yes, we got the cover and 4 pages. I know. We looked at it at the Parks meeting. All right. So then the infamous 2-page Excel document comes into play. We need to start to plan what we're going to do from here, you guys. Regardless of information, we can take time to digest that, but we need to start noodling on how we want to proceed.
And Sarah, if I may chime in here.
Sure.
I think I emailed this out to the committee, but I'll say it here if only for public consumption. The city manager, as you may recall, that the assistant to the city manager was the lead person on this project when we first began. And he changed jobs right about the time that, or shortly before COVID took the kibosh on everything. The city manager has identified and made an offer to a new assistant to the city manager. And he has assured me that this project will be one of her priorities. If he's made an offer now, it'll be, 30 days perhaps until she's on board. But particularly since so much of this work is clerical, that is, keeping track of everybody's email addresses and all the work groups and getting information out to them and confirming RSVPs is just really almost has to be centrally driven out of staff. So when we get that person on board, that's definitely someone we're going to want to sit down with the timetable for year 2 and make sure that she's comfortable with that and that she understands our priorities and our urgency after being on a hiatus for the past year.
Sure. Agreed. Thank you. I appreciate that. As we start to think about it, I'm not thinking May is going to be in person yet. I'm guessing June might be the first. That's probably 50-50. So now we're into July. Regardless of COVID, regardless of format, when do you guys feel like we should start the working groups? Let's just talk about when we think we should start. I know, I have that same heavy sigh, Susan. Like, that seems like it's going to be a lot of work.
Well, it is going to be a lot of work. I mean,
it is going to be a lot of work.
No doubt.
So what do we need to do? Let's back into it. So before we get to working group conversations, let's just identify what we need to do. We all need to dig a little deeper into our data to feel a little more comfortable. We need to probably identify expectations for a work group, right? You guys can chime in here. We need to then reach out to the people that had the year ago signer uppers, right? And I'm not listening this in order, you guys. This is just things we got to get done. We'll need to come up with some type of kickoff presentation or a kickoff meeting thing. Meeting, agenda, and presentation.
Yeah, we need to line up our city presenters.
Yep, our city staff folks.
Yeah, I mean, the people come in, well, both city staff and possibly representatives from other agencies to say, look, here's what's available to seniors now.
Okay.
And is that enough? How does it need to change?
We need to identify a cadence, right? For working group cadence. So we need a cadence for working groups. I guess it's part of expectations.
Yeah, I think there were a few documents that had been shared by other communities around sort of how they formatted those meetings. And it varied obviously by community. So I guess it's figuring out what we want that to look like.
Yep. So
how does that information get reported? All of that. And so they had shared some of those documents with us. They may or may not work.
Yep. I just put down templates for collecting the data for each work group, right?
Yeah.
What else we got to do, guys? As if this wasn't enough.
I think it's making sure that each of the leads feels really comfortable with sort of what that process is going to look like, right?
Yep.
What are the first steps? Like Commissioner Douglas was talking about the data dump and like all of that. So that there's some consistency across the group.
I have sort of envisioned a kickoff event for all work groups. And Lord knows in person it was. I was envisioned it in person, but who knows? So they get the full picture of what's going to be going on and get a broad overview of the data that we have collected, when then the work groups can do a deep dive into their subject matter.
Okay.
I think that makes a lot of sense because there is crossover between the various groups, and there's no sense in doing the kickoff meeting 6 times.
No, I didn't envision it. I figured we'd have one and then kind of identify the cadence. And I think part of the expectations that we need to think about is, like, are we going to identify someone in that group to help with note taking? I mean, I'll be honest, like, this facilitation and note taking is not ideal. So like, I think you're going to want to find somebody to help, that volunteers to help with that. So like, identifying a couple of key roles in the work groups besides just you as the leader and driving the conversation. So what are some roles in the work group?
You could almost have one big group kick off and then break up into your separate groups. Just all at one time.
Yeah. And maybe we do, if it was Zoom, we could put everybody in a breakout room. I mean, we can identify all that stuff ahead of time. So I don't want to get into the nitty gritty. I just want to kind of, I just want to kind of create our checklist of things so we can start adding them to the agenda to start tackling. Okay. So we got a lot of work to do. I don't really want to look at the spreadsheet.
As part of this, is the expectations for the work group, including a timeline of how we want to progress, Or should we consider the timeline to be a separate item and the expectations for the work groups have other aspects, or put them both together?
I think for me, the way I envision it and open here, I would say we're having the kickoff meeting is kind of the timeline from like that moment to like completion for the next 3 or 4 years, kind of some milestones there. And then there's going to have to be a line that we draw in the sand of like, this is when we need the working groups to have it completed, right? So we got to decide that date, because in parallel, I guess myself and someone will be working on the actual document we need to produce. I mean, it's like an 80-page document we need to produce. And so like gathering, maybe that's what this assistant manager can help with, but like we still need to gather all the data for that so that we are in parallel ready to produce that document and turn it in at the end of those working groups. And in the whole time, I'm guessing at some point we need to present this to those working group recommendations to city council at some point. I mean, I can't imagine that we can just say, this is what we think we should do. And we need to come back to somebody to say, this is our recommendations.
So the document I'm looking at here, and I'm not sure how I found this, but well, it's the AARP document. They've got a pretty, an 11-month schedule.
Yep. I'm looking at that.
Yeah. That I think is, well, you know, A, that's the framework they want us to follow, and B, it looks like a good framework.
I'm not sure. Well, I'd have to look at it. So schedule every other month. Okay, I can handle that. Have you guys seen this Excel document? Maybe we can, or do you want me to share, or do you want to?
I can't, because it's on my desktop computer, not on my laptop computer.
Okay.
It was emailed out to everybody.
Yeah. Yep. But I'll bring it over here so we can kind of look at it here. So year 2, we have a steering committee, and then work groups month 1. We elect a co-chair and a secretary for the work group. We review the timeline. We have to develop mission, vision, and value statements. Review the aggregated data from the conversations and survey, and determine what external presentations are needed. So this to me is like, we'd have the kickoff meeting, and then this is basically the first work group meeting. Does that seem fair?
Yeah.
Like after you have a kickoff, this would be our first like individual stream meeting. Paul, Joan, Sue, Susan.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I see where you're going with this, and why reinvent the wheel?
Right. So maybe what we do is we develop mission, vision, and value statement as a group, so that we aren't necessarily, I don't know if every group needs to do that. So maybe some of these things get pulled forward, but this is what they're, you know, I think this is good. To Shar's point with those external presentations, I think the working group identifying those is good, right? Because then it's more specific, and we aren't the ones making those calls. So then we're going to identify priorities and start talking about SMART goals and action plans. They have their presentations, and this is in month 3. So that was in month 2. In month 3, month 4, they meet right, what? 4 to 8. Wow. Now this is basically when you're starting to create your strategies and charts. Then at 9, we all come together and pull it into a single document. It's going to be magic. One delegate presents the entire plan to the steering committee. Then we edit the draft of the action plan, and then we have to submit the draft of the action plan. And then then we have to present it to city council after it's been approved. All right, looks like we got our marching orders, you guys.
So does it get approved by the state first, or?
The AARP, well, I think reviews it, and then they give us feedback. And then if we have to make changes, then they send it to the city Then they send it to the city manager, the city council and city manager for approval. And then we send the final to the AARP. So I think we get feedback from the AARP before we submit it to them as our final.
So to me, there's a step lacking here, and
Sure.
that would be that the edited draft plan, I would say we also put out for public comment.
Yep. What I
Okay.
will do is I will take this and create it for ourselves. How's that? And I will put in, what I will do is I will create a for the next couple months, the stuff that we need to cover to get to the kickoff meeting. And then I'll put a kickoff meeting and then start the months from there. Does that work for everybody?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because then we can edit this thing, because I don't want to get into editing PDF documents. That's always a pain in the ass. So I will create our own Excel spreadsheet that matches, and you guys can put stuff in it too. Does that work? I mean, if we miss something, to your point, Shark, public comment. And do you think they public comment on the draft?
Yeah.
So like, is it after we've received AARP edits or before that?
I would say before that.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that had come up, so couple points. One, there is another AARP document that outlines the components that have to be included in the plan. So that's, I may have shared that with everyone. I can't completely recall, but they have certain criteria. So obviously that's something we all need to be aware of. But from what I recall, like each domain has to have vision, mission, values. And to me, it would make sense that the work of the task, like this project as a whole, should have an all-encompassing set of vision, right? Which we've not developed. So that might be something that we want to add to our to-do list.
Sure. Let me flip back to the other side of my page here. Vision, mission, values. Okay.
Mhm.
Overall. And then, okay.
I think we may save some time if we have already identified what the output format is going to be.
Yep. Okay.
And that each group uses that same format, insert group name here.
Yep.
Kind of
That's what I
thing.
was going to do with the templates, was to basically give everybody templates for data collection so that we could do that like plug and play, Joan.
Okay. I missed that. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
that's okay. No, you're fine. Maybe I didn't articulate it well. So my thought was giving everybody like the final like document of what we're going to have to plug in, so that they can start to work to fill that out, so that so basically we just take them all and consolidate them hypothetically, right? And format them. So one thing I can also send out when I send out some of this other stuff, I would encourage like myself and maybe the two newer folks to go look at some of the other documents. Like Sue and I had gone out and looked in the website to start to look through other report formats that we really like. Like I remember Boston being one that we found particularly like very digestible and user friendly. So you can start to see, because we have the opportunity to create whatever we want. So looking at that gives us a great place to start the conversation around how we want to collect data, and that will help us develop our templates together. So, look at Southfields, they're all over the country, in all different state of like what they submit. I just remember Boston. Yeah, I remember Boston.
That's what I was looking for, because we're looking at 6-7 groups of information coming together.
Right.
And it's helpful to know kind of like a style book.
Yep. Okay. Style book.
And
I got it.
It's not that specific like the Chicago Book of Style.
No, you're not
But
getting that.
I'm talking about the kind of language and how we want to write this stuff up. because if we don't do that, the editing process will just put us in the ground.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. I like that idea. But yeah, like I said, if you look at some of the other ones that have been submitted on the website, that's a great starting off point. And you like elements of one and elements of others. And so we can piecemeal what we want ours to look like. I just remember
would be-
Boston sorry, Sue.
I would be more than happy to volunteer an editor when it's completed with a red marker.
You just like to use the red marker, don't you, Sue?
It's not me, believe me. They edit my work all the time.
Maybe you can find a green one.
Yeah. Maybe we would like hot pink.
I don't do green.
Or purple.
All right.
Purple's good.
Yeah, Susan, what's up?
I just have a question. Being new to the group here, maybe to help myself to get more into what's going on here, what exactly is the reason that we're doing all this?
Oh.
I mean, what's the payoff at the end of all this?
We will get a designation as an age-friendly community. But more importantly, what we will do is we are looking for solutions for us to be able to allow our community to stay here in age from whatever age to like throughout their entire life cycle. So we want to provide opportunities at every point in your life. And it's so we don't necessarily, we focus primarily on seniors because this is an AARP thing, but you got to think about like, for me, the next generation, like I want to stay in Royal Oak and live here for the rest of my life. What do I need in order to make this a destination choice of a place that I can consider as an age-friendly community that will help me make those transitions to the next, through the things that I need as I age?
Okay.
I'm sure Sue and Shar can provide you more eloquent way of saying it.
Well, yeah, AARP's premise is that a community that is friendly to seniors is friendly to everyone. That is that we all want accessible housing and accessible streets and the social services that we need to stay healthy and emotionally stable. And so, and we know that our population is aging, thus the, the nursing home article that I sent out, and that's not going to get any better as time goes by. So the more we are ahead of it, the more we are anticipating those social changes and demands, the more successful we will be as a city.
Okay.
And I think we are close to 30% of our population being in the 65 and older, or we're either close to it now, or we are going to be approaching it relatively soon. I can't remember exactly where we are.
Actually, I think we're coming up on 35%.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
We just want to be inclusive, Susan. We just want everyone to love Royal Oak and be here for the rest of their lives.
Okay.
That's really the goal. We just want you to live here forever. The goal is to live here forever and feel really good about it. How's that?
Okay.
Okay.
So I had a question, not to take time from the meeting, but do you think it would be helpful to meet with Paige on this whole process, just so I have a more in-depth?
You certainly can. I mean, Paige usually attends. She wasn't able to tonight. But Sue, I'm happy to meet with you offline if you want to go through some things. I know that Paige is intricately involved in this, but maybe you and I meet offline and we can kind of go through the documents together. We can have conversations. I've been fairly involved since the beginning, or Shar and Susan. And if we can't figure it out, we can come up with a list of questions and things for Paige. And because I'm sure if you have questions, that there's probably questions that the group can answer, or we can get from Paige directly. So why don't you and I set up some time?
Okay, I just want to do what's right.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I just want to make sure that we're utilizing Paige's time usefully. So let's just you and I meet, and then we can figure out if we need to bring Paige into it. How's that?
The deal.
All right.
I'll help you with the minutes.
Okay. Thank God, because I'm pretty much to the point of I'm like 4 words a thing and I can't read it. So I appreciate you. All
I'd like to suggest.
Yes, Joan. What would you like to suggest?
We have the dreaded work session to look at how we want to format this stuff.
Okay.
Get a list of resources out that we can all look at, and then do a work session where we can knock out a draft of how we want this to look. Because if we do this every single month, we're not
gonna get.
we're not going to get anywhere.
Okay. Okay.
And I don't know if there's, how long will one work session work? I doubt it. I think we'll have to have two, one to just knock it together, and then two to look at it, make sure we like what we have. And it would be nice if we could do this in person, but the COVID is just not cooperating.
No, not at all.
And I don't know if there are other work meetings that we're going to need to have to knock out what we think would be important for saying what the expectations of the work group are going to be. I don't want to turn this into, a work session every other week, and it's just not where I want to go. But I'm wondering if there's some foundational material that we need to put together from a work session. I don't know. What do the rest of you think about that?
So I think mission, vision, and values is a work session all of its own.
I agree with that. I think because I think to get it right, there's a lot of discussion that needs to take place around that. So I do think that needs to be its own work session, and that, I agree with Joan as well then about kind of hammering out some of the details so that we know where we're wanting to end up, so that we can direct this process in a way that we want it to go. I agree.
Shara, are you having in-person city council meetings now?
No, but talk to the city manager, and he thinks that Sue Wells, do you know what the number is right now in terms of how many people can meet? Is it
25.
25? That's what I thought.
We are now mandated for our meetings to meet public, because the governor's extension expired March 31st.
Oh, see, we passed,
City.
we declared an emergency in
Oh,
Royal
you did?
that runs through the end of May.
Okay.
So we still may meet remotely for the city commission, because you don't know how many people will show up during public comment, and you have to be able to accommodate everyone who wants to participate. But for this committee, we could very conceivably meet in person.
As long as everybody feels comfortable.
Right.
Yes. I mean, I actually have been vaccinated, and by Thursday, I'll be 100%.
Meet Wednesday.
But, it's not everybody has had the opportunity to get vaccinated yet. I mean, it just got opened to the general public, yesterday?
I will be
Today?
fully vaccinated by the end of April, because I get my second shot on April 14th. So I might have gone a little ahead of my schedule.
We'll never tell.
Well, we just told everyone publicly, but that's okay. Maybe we can edit that out, but
make the minutes.
I'm gonna not put that in the minutes. So I don't know, Susan Anderson, how are you feeling about meeting in person? No pressure. If you can say no.
No, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I have no issues with it at all.
Paul, you have a little one.
It's a bit of a struggle for me, because my workplace is not yet meeting in person. So then for me to, in order to be able to move.
Okay. Nope, that's okay. That's a good conversation.
It would create some issues for me employment wise if I am doing other things in person.
Okay.
That could be done remotely.
Okay.
There's no reason to rush. We've been at this a year.
Yep. Paul, how about you?
I was fully vaccinated on February 2nd. I
Okay.
had COVID last year. Last checked in December. I had the antibodies still. My wife has the antibodies still. She's got a
Okay.
second shot at the end of this month.
Okay. Well, there's no need to
Very
rush,
helpful.
and we can do this stuff remotely. I think that it just takes a little more pre-planning. So,
Yeah.
I'm on spring break, so I have not, I have some work. Maybe what I'll do is start laying out some of these templates. Yes, ooh, spring break doesn't mean I don't have another 50-hour-a-week job, but I'm on spring break. I'm gonna dig into some of this, and maybe I can start creating some of these templates just to give us talking points, because I think sometimes it's easier to start somewhere and say, no, let's scrap all of this, than it is to just sit in front of a whiteboard and kind of decide what we want to do. Does that make sense? And so if we have some of these things for talking, it might help facilitate the conversation from a remote perspective, at least make it you could say, scrap it all, let's start here, but at least we have the dialogue of what we didn't like about it. Does that make sense?
We have to start with something.
Right.
Otherwise, we'll just flounder.
Yeah. Okay.
If there are specific cities that we have found that we like, that might be the starting point, is to pick one or two of those and as a compare and contrast, and
Yep.
then see where we want to go with it from there.
Yeah. The only one that stands out in my mind is Boston, Susan.
Well,
Do you remember?
everybody likes Boston.
Everyone loves
is
Boston, but
great.
I remember there were elements of Boston that made it super readable. It was super easy to digest from if I haven't been involved with this, I understand the vision and where people were going. Like there was definitely a lot of readability to it. I remember that specifically.
I do
They
too.
had a very clear format for each domain based on what they already were doing, what they heard, what they want. Like it was written in a way that was very understandable based on sort of what feedback they got. It was really, really well done in that regard. We also looked at some others. We tried to find other communities around the country that were sort of Midwestern communities of comparable sizes, just to get a sense of what they've done. Because when you start looking at some of these, some of the larger cities have hired companies to kind of create all of this, right?
Right.
So we wanted to make sure we weren't looking at things that were a real out of reach kind of situation for us. So
can you remember?
I've got a bunch of those. I'm happy. I know we've looked at them before, but I'm happy to re-email some of those out.
Yeah.
So people can review.
Sure. Yeah, since we don't have our own public relations committee to make this look pretty.
Oh, darn it, Joan, you just hit me in my soft spot. The graphic design PR world, I'm confident it'll be beautiful when we're done.
Well, we certainly will. But we have to do the work. We just can't farm it out to some organization, say, hey, make this look nice.
I'll be done with school on May 2nd. So now I got nothing else to do, right? Right? Charles, like, thank God. Now we have someone to write this thing for us. I'm not sure I'm ready for that, but we'll see what we can do. But so Susan McKee, if you can send out a handful of the ones that we had looked at, and then if everybody, why don't we do this, kind of takes a look at them, and then we can kind of maybe compile what you like, what you don't like about some of them, just to have some talking points around it for next time.
Yeah.
And then I think we should kick off our deeper working sessions after our next meeting, or do you want to start them sooner?
No,
I say maybe.
I want to get some stuff under my belt before I leap into it.
Okay.
I guess I'm
If I'm going to
wondering,
make a mistake, I want to make an honest one instead of one that's off the cuff.
I'm wondering though, if we could start the conversation around vision, mission, and value.
Okay.
Because that isn't necessarily impacted
Yeah.
by.
Correct.
Okay. You want to do a mission, vision, value working session?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to send out some little polly thing and we'll figure out when people are available.
That sounds good.
I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to figure something out. So look for that. I will send out like a poll to try to get some ideas of when we can get that scheduled between now. And then May, we'll go over these similar topics, but we'll go a little deeper, and we'll plan our more like tactical work session in May.
Mhm,
Does that seem to work for everyone?
mhm.
Yeah, good summary, Sarah. Thanks.
You're welcome. I don't know where I am in the agenda. Oh, public comment. Are we good with that? Next steps? I feel like we have some really good next steps to work towards, and we all have some homework to do as well.
Great.
And we have
Okay.
zero attendees. That would suggest no public comment.
What are you
That is
laughing at, Jill?
correct.
Thank you, Carol. All right. Public comment was open and closed all in 5 seconds. That was the fastest public comment ever. All right. I'm so efficient at these things. All right. Anything else? Thoughts, comments, questions? Sue Wells, you and I will meet. We'll find a time and come up with some other time to talk through some things. Make sure you feel like you're up to speed. Susan Anderson, if you also feel like you need anything, just help. Don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I will try to help in any way that I can.
This may be asking a lot. Could you kind of run through the action items?
Sure.
I think I captured the ones, but I'm
Oh, Jesus.
brain
Joan,
dead.
no problem. I think everybody just basically, I have a checklist that I'm going to put through of all the things. Mostly what you guys need to do is just look at your data for your specific domains and look at some reports on the AARP and write down kind of what you like and what you don't, what you like about them. Pull out some examples so that we have a good discussion for our tactical discussion around where we want our report to end. That's the only two things you guys have to do.
Okay,
I have a lot of other things, but I'll find them in my notes somewhere.
okay.
And I
Thank
think
you very
Susan
much.
McKee was going to send out some example reports for us. So she has one additional item, and I'm going to work on getting everybody their domain raw data so that you have just your specific domain's raw data so that you can start digging into that. And I will also start noodling on some templates and some things like that to help us. And I have the action item of scheduling, sending out a poll to figure out when we can have our mission, vision, value working session.
Okay,
That's all I got. I may have to watch the recording for all the other things I missed, Joan, but that if we can have you guys review data and look at some AARP report examples, I think we'll be in really great shape.
okay.
And you're
Okay.
going to make sure that we all have the data we need.
Yes, I'm on that. I will work with Carol tomorrow or the next day. I know she may be off tomorrow if she needs to take a day
think-
after her shot.
I think the aspiration sheet data is available also in a more raw format.
Okay,
Not just
Okay.
in the Tiki Box one.
gotcha. I will.
I believe that I did get that sheet from Alexis that had collected all of the various statements for housing. Whether I got the aspirations one or not,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I am just going to find all of it and send you guys whatever I have for your domain. I'm sending it to you directly so that it's all on top of our inbox. We don't have to search from the last year to find it. So anyone who was signed in the domain today, I will get the data to you hopefully this week, early next week. Okay?
Sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for everything.
You're welcome. All
What's
right.
that?
All right. I think we are ready for the next stage. Item number 7 on the agenda, adjournment. But we didn't get to see our special guest from last time, Paul. So I'm not sure we can adjourn yet. Sleeping?
He went
Okay.
to sleep already, yeah.
All right. Next time, we're gonna have to get that. We'll get that in first. Okay. So we don't miss bedtime. All right. I need a motion, guys, or we're gonna just sit and look at each other. As much as I love you all.
So moved.
Sue Wells, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, second. Wells. Okay, I'm gonna vote. Susan McKee,
Hi.
Commissioner Shar Douglas,
Yes.
Joan Johnson,
Yes.
Sue Wells,
Yes.
Paul Webb,
Yes.
Susan Anderson,
Yes.
and myself, Sarah Kinder says, so long and good night to all. Thank you, everyone. Great meeting.
Yeah,
Look forward
good
to seeing
meeting.
you. Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
All
Take
right, good
care,
night.
y'all.
Bye, guys.